Oh, right. Here we are. I am with Hope Hartley, and Hope, you have a very interesting story. I'm really excited that we're finally doing this and getting together and being able to catch up and hear everything you've been doing and creating since you and I last spoke. Now, I want you to talk about you came to my all-in retreat last summer in New Hampshire, and just everybody forgive the frog in my throat here. And that was our first experience together, right? I mean, when we'd had online, right? You'd hopped on online stuff here and there,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
I'd done. But the in-person, this was the first time that we'd done in person, and
Hmm.
that we'd done the laser coaching, getting in on all of that, and also then what we did after that. So can you just talk about kind of your history, where you were in your life, a little bit more about you and where you were in your life coming into the all-in retreat last year? That's what I would like people to really understand.
Yeah, certainly. So I was just reflecting on, I was really in a creative plateau. From my personal relationship at the time, I was still engaged to a man that our cycle had ended, right? I was in a practice involved with other people, where I just truly wasn't kind of doing, what resonated with me in my heart. And I've had that kind of stuck, icky feeling. Now I knew, there was a surrender process, which is how when All In came up, right, as a retreat name, I mean, there was a no-brainer. It was just, it resonated so much with like, I'm being called to and literally ask every aspect of my life right now, to move forward and to, go all in, because what was
Yeah,
holding me back was that, right? Not being all in. So,
that's interesting. So at that point in your life, you recognize that what had been holding you back was not being all in. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I don't think you've actually said that to me. I would like to know what you mean.
yeah, sure. I mean, so hindsight's always easier, right? But even, and I actually have the journal from that time period. And so reading where I was at, it was this, awareness um, of knowing, but not doing what I knew, or not acting on what I knew, or not holding true what I knew, right? I would wobble, I would waver. Like I knew, to break through this codependency me and my partner had, me and my, at the time, relationship with business and money had, um, I knew underneath that the truth, but I wasn't listening to her.
Okay. And do you know why you weren't listening to her?
Fear. But,
Fear, plain and simple. Fear based
yeah.
on what though? Because this is a pretty big thing for you. You are quite a fearless person. I mean, just overall. And that I think people who know you really understand that you just jump out and you do things, you try things, you put yourself out there. So for this fearless person to be in this space at this time in your life and be
Yeah.
trapped by fear, what was that?
Yeah. So, I really truly feel that fear is simply the state of unknowing.
Yeah.
And so, although my soul like knew, right, that it was like time to expand, um, at that time I was at the constrictive energy of playing small, of doubt, of not knowing, holding what I knew.
Beautifully said. I so resonate with everything. That was right on. Right. It's so hard. I think I mean, that's what I do with my wake up call event when people are coming. I'm like, okay, what's calling you? What's tapping at you? What do you know already?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you take what you know? And no matter what's going on externally, like you just said, you hold it right here. You hold it. How do you do that? So this is where you were inside, and you'd been in this relationship for 6 years. You were engaged, right? And now
Mm-hmm.
you knew that like the relationship had completed what it was supposed to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Yeah.
had entwined everything because you were engaged and you were going to be married and you were going to build this life and everything. And as I recall, you had a home together, you had vehicles together, you had dogs or animals together, right? Like,
Yeah. You name it, the codependency was there.
and all the interwovenness of a relationship, period, codependency
Yeah.
included.
Yeah.
Yes. What was the biggest um, red flag for you about the codependence of this relationship?
I think the like physical like pain I was experiencing when I was like, it was that imagining of like of literally being pulled forward while you're like nailed back.
Okay. I'm going to
If
have to
that
think about
explains it.
that. So you knew inside yourself, like your whole being knew that you needed to move forward. You
Mm-hmm.
loved him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think probably love him still. And you knew that you needed to go, which there's no way to
Mm-hmm.
explain that in a concrete way, right?
Yeah. Just a real like knowing in every, cell. And yeah. And so I think the day after, no, the day I returned from the retreat is when I was able to sit with him from a space of love and, let him know the perspective I had, and he shared it.
That's right. I had forgotten that. But
Yeah.
you were brave enough, you were courageous enough, and I want to dive into that deeper. Right after you finished our weekend retreat, the all-in retreat, to come back and have that truth conversation with him,
Mm-hmm.
which started all the big changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're like, oh my God. I know. You guys, whoever, when you watch this, if you knew the changes that this woman went through and like the absolute upheaval and the, she's like getting into the coaching group saying, I look like a freaking hot mess, like such a hot mess. And, we're just all holding that space. But it's really interesting because you come into somebody's life only seeing this window that you're coming in on, but there's this whole part before and this whole part that comes after that really is also this person. And it's so hard to be that vulnerable as the woman who I've been there multiple times, the hot mess, and people only see that window. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not, you guys, I swear this is not the whole story.
Yeah. 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 And that's, bringing it to coming to right my purpose, with you so clearly. It was so awesome, that moment. We just connected eyes, and it came right through what I had been saying in so many words, right? And you were able to, just like you said, laser right in and say it. And
I want to talk about that. Because before we get to that purpose, because that was so amazing. That, I mean, really, and how old are you, Hope? I mean,
27.
you're 27 and you're already a healer and an entrepreneur and you've already made a name for yourself and all of that. And I want to just underscore, because we didn't really kind of do this part in the introduction, but so many people, I mean, I owned a wellness center for 20 years and I worked with healers of all kinds all over, wellness advocates, all of that. But the thing that's interesting to me, and I told you this at the retreat when we really started to get in on the laser coaching with you, you weren't in a learning curve. I mean, not in the sense of your healing work and this work that you do. You already were that. You came in already having all of that. You're in a learning curve with what you're working on in your life. We all are, right? And yet this other part where I would see people start out with, okay, I'm going to open this center, or I'm going to start doing Reiki, or I'm going to start, doing coaching or working with people or whatever. Like they will start out and then they will learn through it. And what I saw with you, and I have to say this because I think it's so important to really give the gravity to your story, is that you already had it. And I remember saying to you, you're the real deal. I said those words to you. And I knew that whatever was going on in the turmoil of your life and all of this and the history that you'd had and everything, that none of that actually was you. I knew it so clearly. And that what I could do to walk in for that period of time and help remove some of these layers of other things to help this you that already was all there, the real deal, doing the work at such a high level with people, and that you didn't have to know for them. You didn't have to know anything. You could just walk in and you were so tuned in and you could just bring it and do it. So, and then we never know what our challenges in our lives are going to do that are going to kind of, topple us over or whatever. And we need that, whoever walks in to help us take that toppling off of us. But so, okay. So I just wanted to say that first, that you really were already at this level, but you came in at this major transition point of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of us really hit that? So as you came in to the retreat, before we got to that amazing moment in the group, one of the group break-off groups that we did, what was your experience at first coming into the all-in retreat?
I think the first thing I noticed, right, was just like the feeling of being in one room with 25, 26 women who, not a single one, because we had all that agreement of being all in, there was no judgment.
There was none.
Like, you held the space for absolute, just full body listening. And I think you even said the words of, like, if you're a practitioner, healer, like, turn it off and just be a woman with another woman. And right, I mean, probably a little part of me was like, oh. In all honesty, right? Like, I'm always tuned in. What do you mean? But it just made this space for everyone to just really feel held.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so glad that that's what you talked about right off the bat, because you know what the power of that space is for women. We're so used to making everything okay for everybody else. It's very unusual to be able to walk into a space where there's not this transference going on with whoever is leading. And I know you know that because you are clear. I saw that with you as well. You are clear to keep all of your own bullshit over here, well contained and worked on and all of that when you are going in to work with somebody else. Right. So you saw that happening right off the bat at the all-in retreat. So then what do you remember next about your own process? Because I think I want to get into like the heavy machinery, like that little piece right there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the first thing that you had us do was kind of like call out our elephants in the room, right? Like, what, I think you worded it, what was our biggest risk?
Yes, that was it.
And, so I went right to like the fact that I'm about to be homeless when I tell this relationship that it's over, and you were like, no, let's keep going. And, you got me to the point of where, a time in my life where I was searching for connection, right? But, intimately, I wanted to end my life.
Right.
And, bringing me to that rawness, right? And expressing something that I have done work, but never just full body, full cell, like accepted, that piece, when you really brought that to the table. And so that makes so much sense, right? In the work that I do, yes, is allowing people to not, or to move through the shame that they experience with any aspect of self by simply expressing it.
Right. Expressing it in a space that is so completely clean and clear and heard and understood and held at that deepest level in the darkness. Right.
Yeah.
Because then you can become free. Right. It's not that, I've shared it, so now it's out in the open. I can feel that relief of the burden. You'd already handled all of that long before. That was not what you came with. So you were still at that point, there was some deeper level inside that I just want to be clear with, because I know you and I are clear, but I just want to talk about it, that even with all the work that you've done and even the fact that you are a healer, and I think this is an important thing to, because we always, we are the examples of the things that we're teaching, and we are learning in those examples. And I know that you share that path with me. So in this place, you found yourself at this deeper level with shame from those experiences that you had had, and the
Mm-hmm.
pain that was there. I remember there was extraordinary pain in those very private places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
How is that connected to the transition of this relationship?
Sure. Good question. So, mhm. I think it comes down to like accountability. Right? And like really, if I'm expecting others to hold themselves accountable
Right.
for whatever they were hiding, for whatever they were doing, I have to be accountable, for all of me, right?
All
And
of you.
accountable in a way of not like accountable to my light, accountable to my power, accountable to my soul.
Yes. And for you, at that point, there was so much that was already known. So you couldn't just be accountable the ways that other people would see it, like the visibility parts, right? Because you already
Mm-hmm.
were on that. This was accountability that only you would know on these very, very deep levels, so that you could show up 100% with the bigger purpose that was already inside you, ready to move out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I had to obviously connect to the pieces of me that were fragmented, right? And
Yes.
but in like a really just raw state, not fixing, not changing, not adjusting, not shifting. No, just hold it.
Right. And then, as it turned out, to do it being homeless over the
Yeah.
next how many months?
Yeah. I think it was about 5 or 6 that I
Wow.
was in between places.
Oh my God. Yeah, so much that happened. So, okay, so back to the retreat then. So this was the place that you were in, and you were, as I walked back through it, I can remember and feel how you were giving yourself the opportunity to see yourself in a completely different way than you'd ever given yourself that opportunity before, right? Because you knew who you were in these particular ways. But as a healer, um, with this history of kind of really fraught history of codependence with your parents, right?
Mhm.
Each of them individually, not just together, but individually. And
All of it.
right, even though you're an adult and you had all of this stuff, and it was creating sabotage in the career that you were building and the life's work that you were pursuing and doing. Is
Mhm.
that correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
So what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at that point too, like even codependency on my work itself, if you can believe that, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah,
No, I
and
totally get
so,
it. Yeah.
and so just really humbling, but humbling in an expansive way, right? So not humbling like things I need to work on, humbling like things I got. And
Beautifully
it was
said.
like, it was this, right? The undoing of the like we're never healed road,
Right.
but understanding simply we are like to be accountable for the fact that you are healed.
Right. We are already whole and we're just
Right.
learning our way back.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. So here you were, and I remember that moment of like, she loves heavy machinery. She's this like beautiful, like wild, wispy, just, strong, but, you know, you see everything in nature and people and all of this, and so aware all the time, and so attached to all of that. And then there's this other part of you that just like, mm. When if you and heavy machinery got together, it was like, oh yeah, baby. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then that happened in real life,
And then it
right?
happened. Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's this total, um, yeah, in a way, I think masculine part of me that I almost pushed away and to take in, like, the goddess in with me, but we need both. And
Right.
coming to the realization with you, right, that is so much of my power too, is this like divine masculine. And then, in walked in the relationship I'm in now with this beautiful divine masculine man who super interdependent with me in our relationship, which was challenging, as you probably remember for
I
me in the
remember.
beginning. But it's really made me understand that mirror, right? And hold that divine masculine pull with my divine masculine, which I think is why my business and, everything else has kind of come into fruition.
Come into, yeah, really just taking off. And so let's just then fast forward to that moment, the second day, at the end of the second day of the retreat, we're in the breakout groups. And I remember where you were sitting, and that room was so wonderful. Everybody was just kind of tucked in and just
Mm-hmm.
cozied up and everything, that all the women that were with us. And we were just going around and we were talking about purpose, and we were diving into the deeper self to really ask and start to bring out the pieces of what we could understand right now. Because what I know about purpose is that it doesn't come ready made off the shelf. It is inside of us, already fully there, but we don't get to walk in and say, oh, where's my name on the shelf? Oh, here it is. And then you just pull the purpose off and like, I got it. Okay, let's go.
Right.
Unfortunately and fortunately. But so that's why it was so stunning and surprising. And so many of the women who are at the retreat have gone back to refer to that because it gave them a real understanding of how to be about finding their own and to recognize it when it showed up, right? So you and
Mm-hmm.
I were there. I wanted you to tell that story. So you and I are there in that room, that moment.
Yeah, and I think there was, whatever words I said, right? You were like, no, no, in total love, right? And I, again, of course, was like, shit, like this is so close. Like I can just
Mhm.
feel it, And I think there were words of, I think the word connect was maybe in the sentence or something. And I just remember, I think you closed your eyes and you took a deep breath and you just looked right at me and it just came out. You are here to connect that which has been disconnected. And
I have
the
chills when you say it. I'm sorry, like just
yeah.
through my entire body, just in that moment. Thank you. Please continue.
Yeah. And it, I mean, the imagery of from when I was a little girl, up until that moment of all the times that was what I was doing. And
Yes.
without knowing or without
Yeah.
really knowing the tools or why I felt the way I felt, like that was always what has been this pulse. Um, and so
And
to hear it and to, it was, it was almost like that sonar ping came back.
and then I asked you, because you first had to check in, right? So check in with your little girl. Do you find, and you found her like you just described, and then I said, and what about when you were at that moment of taking your life? Do you remember what you said to me? Because I remember those words so clearly. In that moment, I asked you that, and I watched your eyes just, flash, and you looked at me without even hesitating, and you said, that's when I believed that it wasn't possible.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That you came to a place in your life where you really confronted being that awake and aware that your purpose was not possible. And that was
Mm-hmm.
when you felt that darkness and that everything that brought you to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
Mm-hmm.
you were supposed to be here.
Yes. Yes, yes.
And you are.
Yeah.
And thank you for, I just want to say thank you for our being able to walk into that very, very precious, sacred, and private space because I think there are so many people um, who silently confront their own path and are not able to understand it the way that you understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then once that came, what has come now as a result of that? Talk more about what happened after that weekend, the all in retreat weekend.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, the the actual transformation of kind of leaving, or not leaving, but understanding the end of that relationship, right? And also understanding the end of business relationships, and moving into really a space of the unknown, right? And being comfortable in that. And so that was a really groundbreaking experience to build our foundation that we focused on, of just building my foundation.
Right.
And so through that, like when, I went back to me, I was really able to get clear and simple what I want, what I'm going to create, what I'm going to do.
Yes. And there was that tug of war in that process because you were building your foundation inside while you didn't yet have this home foundation on the outside. And
Yeah.
every week that we would get on the calls, the sessions with everybody, and you would come in, and so many times you were in a completely new place, and so many times you were like, all of this stuff, like a whole lifetime had just transpired in the last 7 or 14 days, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
filling us in on like this mile a minute changes this and going this direction, then having that fall apart or the bottom drop out and having to shift again and move in another direction. And you and I did a little bit of one-on-one time, work in that time. And I remember when we had that, because I knew I needed to like just have uninterrupted, because we had everybody else in the group, and I needed just a little bit more of that with you. So we did that, and
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about what you already know
Mm-hmm.
inside and what you're building, and that it's already there. Do you remember that?
I can remember the feeling of it. Like, I
Yes.
remember how we just, like, the turn of the switch kind of.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so good, because I felt you in that moment. It was just that. That's exactly it. Like to plug something back in, right? Make
Yeah.
sure it's all plugged in, even though everything else is still in this chaos and everything's still in transition and movement. And it's perfect chaos. It's beautiful chaos, right? Like you have to quit like freaking out and just let things happen, even though you are going to freak out because it's happening. And
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
And I just have to say that it's not unusual that I will have women that I work with who are ready, like they're powerful and ready for those big changes, to realign them straight on with their purpose and the vision that wants to be created out of that purpose. And that when we come together, I don't know anything, but I know what that is on the inside, and that's always what I'm about. And so it's like our coming together creates this kind of Kalima, volcanic eruption kind of experience
Yeah.
in the week that
Yeah.
follows. Yeah. So, okay. So tell me, or share with us more about just the things that really stand out for you. Because I know you made some notes, and I would love to hear more about the things that really sparked for you that you wanted to share into our space.
Yeah. So I think one thing I really resonated with our work together was how you spoke to, like, me, my sovereign soul.
Yes.
And
Beautifully
so,
said.
yeah, well, beautifully done. But, right? Like, and so that too, like, it made sense once, because receiving it really helped me understand how to hold a similar light for others, right?
Ah, that's perfect. Yes.
And so I recognized, like, the questions you were asking, which awesome. I wrote that the open-ended questions that you created were so helpful. And so I just really resonated with that. But I also was like, this, I think we work in kind of similar ways.
Yes.
As far as holding someone to like the truth of their soul. That's the frequency that we see. We see all the other stuff, but we see through it.
Yes, that's very well said. That's exactly right.
And so learning how to hold myself accountable, right, for that has
Right.
then translated right to my practice being of that. So it is, my practice is expanding more and more through that just realization of holding myself to my whole soul.
That is powerful. So in the months that follow, when we were doing the all-in mastermind coaching group,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you started bringing up, because you had the retreat you were doing in Costa Rica, and
Mm-hmm.
you and I were talking about your branding, and we were talking about, because you already had so much established, but you just didn't know, oh, this is what I have established. This is what this really, like, making sure you were really clear about that, and then asking other questions to help you bring it all together and make it
Yeah.
solid. Right. So you want to talk about that? Share?
Yeah. So one of the, first like assignments you gave me, right, was to make a Pinterest on my business, and the fonts, the colors, the images, the herb, like everything that you could think of that really held the energy of wild peace, vibrational medicine.
Right.
And so, my goal that we had set with you, and that was another thing that I think is really important to share with how you do goal setting, because writing down goals for me is like it just hasn't been my juice, right? Just isn't juicy for me. So you had us just see ourselves in a year and meet that version of self. And I'm like, that's great. Like I can actually do this and feel not like I'm just forcing, because I don't like to force, right? We don't need to force. So
I'm going to have them edit out that part.
yeah, I figured. No worries at all.
Okay. All right. I think we're back in. So let's
Okay.
go ahead and give it a go. Okay. So come back. I want to say that about the goals again, if you would. That was so awesome.
Yeah. So, right. Like writing goals is just icky to me and feels forced. And to be honest, I think the way that you approached it, of having us go through a meditation and just experience the energy of where we're going to be in that 1 year, right? Fully lit. So experiencing that. One, like why, well, not to go off, but if we can actually create it rather than manifest and spend all this time building it instead of just seeing it and feeling it, like that really hit home to me, and just feeling myself in that year, in that space where I want to be. And sure enough, just about a year from that time, most of the goals that we envisioned during that time period were met. So,
Hallelujah. Oh my God.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that was right. So leaving a practice that there was great resonance for, but just I needed, to do my thing and expand in the way I wanted to expand.
Right.
Um, and so I was really able to formulate wild peas.
Obviously, all the way up, right there. Yep. A little bit
If
over
you
to
can,
the side.
okay.
There you go. Right there. Perfect. So this is what you formulated.
Yes. Yeah, and this name has been, floating. This was kind of the name that my sister and I did are going to continue doing, our retreats too. But, and a close friend, who was also a client, kind of drew that up. So beautiful with the snake
Beautiful.
and the fern.
Snake in the
But,
fern.
but it was, taking the pieces that I knew, right? Holding myself accountable for it, and just finally having the gumption to do it, to follow through. Having that support, and we did it.
The support in the right ways,
Mm-hmm.
not in the
Yeah,
old codependent pattern, because you
right.
had thought that that was the way that support worked. And that was a huge part of what you and I continued to work on, right? Over and over
Mm-hmm.
again in the group and the one-on-one, was to bring you back out of, because you were transitioning fast. Everything was changing quickly. And so you were having things come into your life that were challenging you to move out of that old pattern fast.
Oh
Right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I
You
had
were
no
like,
choice.
nope, you had no choice. It had your
Yeah.
number. You were all in. It was going all the way, and you had
Yeah.
chosen. And so, of course, that's what
I
happened.
had committed. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
So,
that's something really important to say, because I did that, and I do that every time I do the all-in retreat. I give women the choice between themselves and their own souls to be all in. And that doesn't mean you know what it means. Doesn't mean you know what you're signing up for. It means that you're going on the trust walk, right?
yeah.
That you're going to get to choose to be all in with this deal. And here you are, the soul goal setting, right? If we could put a
Mm-hmm.
words on it, where you were really able to move in and feel not your ego mind, but instead your highest self, your sovereign self, really leading you forward and knowing what your goals were that you were moving toward, and trusting
Yeah.
that. You being all in 1 year's time, you brought yourself to that. And now I can see behind you your setup, and you have your own, your very thriving business, and you have this relationship that is a support for you, which was the biggest challenge you had. You were either
Mm-hmm.
like, fine, I'm just freaking doing it on my own, get the hell out of here, or this codependent space of I
Yeah.
need to lean on you. And there was this separate new way, like you just said, I think you said a number of times, interdependent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the middle way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. So in this place, and having come full circle, what I want to ask you is, so there were a um, couple of questions here. What do you feel was like the biggest thing you learned about you through that process of the all in and coming out in the next 6 months with the mastermind?
Hmm. One thing that you said that just comes up, and I had just read it, was you simply stated, right? We receive love how we love ourselves.
And what does that mean to you?
That is the that is the truthful way of just holding someone to their light.
Yeah, beautiful. Perfectly said. Say it again for us.
um, So how we receive love is how we love ourselves.
How we receive love is how we love ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then it stays clean.
Yeah.
And powerful.
Yeah. And it speaks to the sovereign soul.
Yes, it does. So, so powerful. And then if you were to talk to somebody who was also a healer and had, whatever her age, already knew what she knew, and it wasn't an ego process for her at that point, but she also had this journey that she was on, and she was in a place where everything was in transition or ready to transition, and she couldn't see anything, and she was doing this like fight within herself. What would you say to her about doing the all-in experience and the work after that? What would you say, just between the two of you?
This process helped me find my word, or how other people say why, but not in a external reason why.
Right.
And so by having that word, no matter how pulled to which way it is, you can return. And so, my word of, maybe then it was connection, kept me coming home to that point. And so it helped me navigate every circumstance in my life by resonating it to that word. And if it brought me closer
to connection, then you knew it was aligned for you. And if it didn't, then it wasn't aligned.
Right.
So for somebody similar to your path, coming to that point, doing this experience is going to help them get down to that clarity within themselves, so that they have the true north inside, with everything else that's going to change and happen when they're on that verge, the cusp of massive change, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then this is the last thing that I would, thank you for that, by the way. This is the last thing I would love for you to share. If it was just the two of you and you were just speaking to her, not about the experience, but just from your soul to her soul, what message would you give her right now?
So the feeling in my body, right, which is kind of how I work a little bit, is just this transference of total acceptance.
Beautiful.
And seeing and hearing. So, I know you.
Yeah. Yes, you do. That's exactly how I feel too. Thank you for sharing that. That's perfect. And thank you for our walking down this path of what your last year and 4 months have been, and everything that you've built and created out of this year, which was ready for you, and you couldn't see it. And the trust walk and what we've been able to do and share together. And this is profound. And I'm just thrilled. I am so thrilled. So, Hope, thank you so much.
Thank you.